Hey, Casey, so great to have you on my show. That was loud. You weren't expecting that, right?
It's 5 hours difference here in the States, so it just woke me up.
That just
So
woke
I'm
you
good.
up. Fantastic.
Good morning, good afternoon,
morning.
and good day.
And pretty soon, good night. But
Good night.
thank you so much for joining me on Turban Thinker. I'm super excited to speak to you, especially that we kind of touched base last week and I had a sneak peek on who Casey Webb is. And so today I'm going to just get right into it because I've done my intro and I made you fabulous. Of course you are. So
Thank you.
So how are you?
I'm doing great. We did do a deep dive too, which was, as a preliminary, interview, let's call it. We dug deep, which was great. And it's,
Which is natural.
I think it's nice to be able to freely speak and just have someone listen. I think that's like the greatest gift we can give one another is our full attention. And so when you're offered that, it's like, I know myself, I kind of just don't stop.
Amazing. And we do not want you to stop. We want you to keep on going. I'm sure it's going to be, what's interesting is I typically don't do, I don't do really Zoom. Usually they're audio podcasts, but lately I have been doing Zooms because I think it's really important for people. You just get so much more, right? So much more comes out.
I for sure, it's because it feels as personal as you can probably get.
Yes.
Without being in the room.
So now last time we spoke, you had your little puppy or doggy in the background. So is he still around? He might show up. Oh, she.
Oh,
is
yeah.
It a she?
It's a he, and it's Iggy is a 5-year-old rescue Brussels Griffon. I say Griffin, but it's a Brussels Griffon. And I get corrected by people that are just dog people that just refuse to let me say Griffin. But yeah, he's taking a nap. They eat and sleep a lot. The little ones, because they have little heartbeats and they beat very fast.
Man. So maybe if we're lucky, we might get a sneak peek and a possible interview behind the scenes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
He's we'll have to talk to his agent, but more than happy.
But once we get the okay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, he's actually calling his agent now, so he's good.
Fantastic. So Casey, let's start with, introducing you to everyone again. Of course, a lot of people know you in the US. My podcast goes out to sort of Asia, Europe, UK, Middle East, and of course the US. So how about we start with where you're from, your background, a little bit on that.
My name is Casey Webb. I'm a New Jersey native. I grew up in New Jersey. That's in the United States. It's right just downriver from New York City. Both my parents are New Yorkers, which is a lot of folks in New Jersey. When people leave the city, they go to the suburbs. Typically, they either go to Long Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and my parents made their way here, which was, and I'm here now. I've lived in New York City for most of my adult life, but I came back to New Jersey when the world shut down. To hang and spend time with my parents because they needed it. So, and I think I needed it quite honestly too.
Yeah.
So grew up in New Jersey. I spent a lot of my time I grew up in the suburbs and we grew up near the ocean. So it was either at the beach or in the woods or in the yard, a lot of time outside. And that's, I think I've always craved that. And that's my exodus from the city really was a quality of life change by coming back here because I never thought I'd ever leave New York City. It took a global pandemic to get me out, but
well, that's a great thing though, right? Sort of back to your roots, I guess.
For sure. And I've always looked to nature. Though my parents were New Yorkers, we spent a lot of time outside, did a lot of camping. I was involved with the Boy Scouts as a kid and family camping, and then like guys trips with dads and with fathers and sons and funny, I just craved it. I always craved it. So it was like, dare I say, coming home, because it was home.
For sure.
Where I grew up. But there's there was more nature than I was. There's an abundance here, and it's anytime that I decompressed from traveling, doing the show, I would make my New Jersey or somewhere else. I do that even not in New Jersey. Like, for instance, like we'd finished filming the show that I've been working on since 2017, Man vs. Food. I would go to Costa Rica because it was so foreign and remote, and I could completely detach.
Give you some time out. Yeah, for sure.
A real time out. It's hard to do that in a place that you're so familiar with, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you need a little bit more than just a weekend off, you know, or a couple days at the beach.
We touch base before we move on into sort of Man versus Food, which is obviously a really exciting, we're going to have loads of conversations on that. It's really for me more about, you know, you're talking about Jersey, you're talking about coming home. Last time we had a conversation and it was wonderful because you spoke about sort of, you know, your fondest memories, I guess, your childhood, your dad, you just mentioned, you know, so that was obviously something really profound. And you said you came back to Jersey and you had that, thank God, you had that time also. So let's talk a little bit about sort of, I guess, fondest memories growing up as a kid. And then, you know, how important, you speak about your dad a lot, even on your Insta, you know, there's a lot of emotion there. So I'd love to kind of talk about those fondest memories from you.
Growing up here, we were able to spend a lot of time outside, which was, I think, why I crave it so much. And I think as humans, we crave that. So having an upbringing.
Nature, I mean, it's nature, right? That's it.
Yeah, yes. And I, you know, it's funny because my father as a kid, my father grew up in the Bronx, which is one of the boroughs in New York City. And he was a city kid, as my mother was too. And he was part of this organization called the Fresh Air Fund. And that organization still exists. So he was, my grandmother was a single mom. His father had left and started another relationship, and his sister was older and his brother was older. He was in the military, so he was off busy with that. My aunt and my grandmother basically raised my dad. Summers he would vacation. He would go to an area of Massachusetts, which is on the coast, very similar to here, called Ipswich, Massachusetts. And if you've ever been to the States, there are clams that are from there that we get up and down the eastern seaboard, and oftentimes anywhere else in the country if you're so lucky, because they're Ipswich clams. So my dad, as a little city kid, he got to go to the suburbs, or at least the country. And you know, the father was a musician, he was a carpenter, he was a fisherman. And so my father was able to kind of absorb a lot of these traits, which I think prepared him to move to New Jersey to raise two boys in the suburbs, you know, whereas my mom didn't have that experience. So she had a completely different experience when she moved out of this city to the suburbs. So, you know, I was very fortunate to have my pretty humble as far as food was concerned as kids. You know, you ate what you were given, you know, what was on the plate, you know, what was at the table.
And you ate all of it. You ate all of it.
You weren't eating it. Yeah, you weren't eating, you know, and we were out, we have an older brother, just me and my brother, and he's my older brother. And so he still is, he always will be my older brother.
Yeah. Really?
And yeah, I haven't caught up yet. I've been trying my whole life. A dove just flew by. Hey buddy, I'm up on the 5th floor. So I get birds and all kinds of things up here. So growing up, so we would, you know, my brother and I would be outside all the time. So we would be working up appetite. So it didn't matter what we ate. We always ate. We ate probably enough to, you know, affect my parents financially. You know, that's how much we were eating. 2 boys.
So is
outside.
That safe to say it started back then, your love for food, your passion for food? Is that where it all began?
I think so. I think it was more about satiating a need or a hunger that was just in a chubby little kid's body. You know, I think, you know, we were active, and I think my brother would push the limits of what we could and couldn't do. And so, you know, he's my older brother, so I wanted to do what he did. So, I think we could say that.
So were you the scapegoat at any time? When he pushes the limits, did you get it?
I was the goat.
You were the goat. Okay.
I wasn't the greatest of all time, but I was the one, which goat, that means.
Yes.
But yeah, I was definitely the scapegoat. He was on an episode of the show, which was great. My father, my brother, my nephew.
Oh, amazing.
Which was the New Jersey episode, which was, it was good. was good to have them be a part of the show. It's just because, you know, I for a long time I wasn't around, you know, because the show is it's on the road, you know, it's not in a studio.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
so
yeah,
how did you start? I mean, what possessed you to get into entertainment industry, number one, really? Because that's a hugely competitive, very challenging. Before, you know, or was it food first? Was it sort of culinary? Was that where you started and then you moved into entertainment? How was that journey?
So I think it really starts kind of where, you know, we left off from jumping out of trees, where, you know, there was a point when I was a little kid that my father, because I think I just found myself in the kitchen very often. Because it's either outside, the living room where the TV was, and like, you know, we had a TV that you had to get up and turn the channel. Like you had, you know, there was no remote control.
For all the kids listening, that's a big dial.
Yeah. And then eventually we got the one with the cord that went to, you know, at least to the coffee table. But for the most part, we had to get up and adjust the antennas. And that wasn't that long ago.
It was not. It was not. And it was a daily exercise.
It was good.
Now we don't even have that. Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to leave the couch ever. You can just stay on the couch. You don't ever have to get up. So, you know, my dad, when I was 10, he found it necessary to teach me how to basically to cook. To cook eggs. So he put a spatula in my hand around 10. I think so because I would leave him alone, and also that I wouldn't burn the house down. So I have a respect or an understanding of cooking. But, you know, where I grew up, we had an electric stove, which made it a lot easier not to burn the house down. So
for sure,
that was a good thing. And from there, you know, I think it was being able to create for myself, and not knowing it at the time that I just was just had a creative way of thinking. Looking back at that, because I definitely had some difficulties navigating through school just based on my own genetics and who I was. So like having a craft, having a skill really helped my focus. And like, and along the way, my father and my mother would be integral in part of that, like giving these tasks that helped me focus my energy, not knowing, you know, because as a teenager, I was just really distracted. And in a preteen, I was really distracted. And my parents wound up getting separated as a kid, so that probably played into it as well. But, you know, taking full responsibility for my own actions, not blaming my parents, it was really, food really helped, or the cooking really helped focus that energy. I didn't know it then, you know, I just knew I could feed myself with a little bit of help from my dad.
But were you experimental? I mean, when you were cooking as a kid or a teen, were you just sort of the basics, or were you actually like, oh, I'll throw a little bit of this, a little bit of that, boom? Were other people eating and trying your food? Were friends?
No, I don't think anyone was eating my food.
Just for you.
No. Yeah. No. I mean, we were pretty, you know, we were, a lot of things were, even though New Jersey is the Garden State, a lot of things came from my parents' traditions of eating. So a lot of pre-war kind of food, canned food, nothing wrong with any of it, but we ate a lot of canned food. And, you know, and that was, you know, like, I think the freshest thing would be the protein would be chicken or what have you. So, you know, there's a lot of meatloaf, a lot of salads, you know, these are things that, because like, you know, menus in your home are passed down from your parents, from your grandparents. And then they kind of meld together. So what my father's skill sets were in cooking and my mother's skill sets in cooking came together as a couple. Maybe that's why they got divorced. They couldn't see. I don't know. But you know, it's interesting.
Casey, if life were that simple.
Right. Yeah. I think
it was all because of meatloaf.
Yeah, if it was over the meatloaf, then, you know, there's deeper problems at play, you know? So, you know, but you know, that was kind of the first introduction to really food. It was just simply, this is simply good and this is good enough. And I was okay with that. I grew up okay, you know? I'm great, you know, there's no complaints.
You look fab.
Thanks. Again, I crave nature. So yeah, I think it was really then. And then right after that, a few years later, I started washing dishes in a pizza place, physically down the street from my house. And I grew up with those kids, and that was a whole learning curve about food, because if without the person washing the dishes, the whole system breaks down.
Yeah.
If you're not getting the dishes done, from the front of the house, and it's a pizza place, it's not, it's not full service necessarily restaurant, but the same rules apply. If the dishes back up, so does everything else. So that was a huge, just the value of the work that I was doing played an important part in the food getting out to the table.
You didn't study the craft, let's say.
Well,
you learned the trade,
14,
basically.
No,
I'm saying sure.
Generally, I was very fortunate to have that job at 14.
So when you think about the first job, right? Of course, that has a massive impact usually on someone. My first job was a salesperson in Harrods, which I loved. I'll never forget, and that sort of catapulted the career, right? You get the bug, you love it, you're on the shop floor. So when you look back at that, do you look back and say that was actually one of the greatest times, or do you think, oh my God, even though you were washing dishes and I was serving customers, it's tough?
Yeah.
But
I think the beauty about it was that there was a cast of characters that worked there.
Yeah.
And I think I too was a budding character.
For sure.
And all those people, and anybody that we come that passes through our lives, we have an opportunity to really learn and observe and watch and feed off of. And I think two things. I think there's just a host of characters. I have ideas about sitcoms about a pizza place.
So was it a lot of like bada bing, bada boom? Yo, Tony, a lot of that.
Not as Italian as you might think.
Not as Italian, I went all Italian.
Or Jersey Italian. No, It was more like, I think the guy that was making the pizza was an ex-con, and like, but like reformed, but nice guy, he just, I think he hit the skids at one point.
Everybody needs a chance in life.
There's two things about that working in even at that age at 14, washing dishes, is that when you work in a restaurant environment, there's always food and there's always a little bit of money in your pocket. And that's kind of the value that hit me first. It was about that. And, I did work other jobs. I worked a lot of labor jobs. I did a lot of landscaping for my father's friends. So there's so much work. And you just have to be work capable to get a job. Like, you just have to have the desire to go to work. My parents insisted that I go to work. And then I found a desire to do it myself because the rewards were there. Working landscaping, I was outside in the sun, working in a pizza place, I got pizza, and then, and they both give you cash in your pocket. So there was a lot of benefit there. Before I started bussing tables and food running and expediting and then even into the kitchen, I left my grade school for my 8th grade and my freshman year. That's high school here. And I went to this other school, be it it's not a reformatory school, but just I needed to get back on track as far as my academics and my behavior, just because I was a class clown and I acted out a lot. And I think there's a lot of variables there. It wasn't just the meatloaf, it was why my parents split up, but it really helped my focus. And that's when I was introduced to Culinary 101, because there was a class that I took there, which was just basic skills, knife skills, and so on. The chef, and he was an instructor, he worked like hotel restaurants, and like I later got into that world too, which is just busy and high volume.
That's tough.
Set and repeat. And it's like, and he was no joke, and he was very good. Stan, he was very good at his job, and that, again, the pendulum swings back to that focus when my father put the spatula in my hand, and it gave me focus. And I didn't have to spend too much time at that school, because then I went to my actual high school, and that's when I started playing sports. And that became another focus while in high school. So much so it brought me to college, and I played football, American football. And that's when I started acting. So I worked in restaurants, from 14 throughout high school, on and off. Out of high school, I worked in restaurants from the kitchen to the front of the house. It was almost like I kind of graduated out of the kitchen to the floor, because I think I might have talked too much for the kitchen. And and there was always more money there. And it was just a different skill set, because I made my way through all of it. By the time I got Man versus Food, I had worked in every position in a restaurant with the
Wow.
exception of ownership. So
Tremendous amount of knowledge then.